Hello, everyone. I felt it to be appropriate for us to reflect on the last two chapters that we read from Genesis, chapter 49 and 50. I hope that you've been marinating on those chapters. I hope that you found room to apply them to your life. Let me know anything that really stuck with you, or that you thought on since we read those chapters, or since you read those chapters, since God spoke into our lives. The first thing that stuck out to me was at the beginning of chapter 49, when Jacob was given and blessing his children, and each of them had a different assignment. So from that, I've been thinking that it's very important not to compare your mission and your journey and the gifts that God gave you to anybody else's, or expect anybody else to live up to your gifts. Does that make sense? So like, if you were blessed with being able to have the gift of faith. So if through any situation that you're going through, any outcome that comes, you always have the faith and the understanding and God to know that it's going to work out, that it's going to be okay. Not everyone's like that. Not everyone can maintain faith in the midst of troubles, in the midst of trials. So to get frustrated at someone for not being able to obtain or, live up to the gift that you have of faith, is unfair to that person. It's unfair to yourself. And it's unfair to God. And I say it's unfair to God because you're trying to, dictate the gifts that He has given out. It's unfair to that person because you're putting expectations on them that they're not going to be able to live up to. That's your gift. That's your job. That's your ingredient into the pot. So if you're making a dinner, nobody else can be salt except for salt. Nobody else can be pepper except for pepper. Now, of course, you had the substitutions, but it's not going to be the same. You have to be the salt of that relationship, of that dynamic, of your situation. You have to live as your gifts. You have to be as your gifts. And that's on an individual basis. So that person has to live in their gifts as well. And don't expect them to live outside of their gifts. What also stuck out to me was when their father passed. He gave up the ghost. Joseph went up to go and, bury his father. And when he was gone, his brothers thought that he was going to now take his revenge. Is going to now, show the spite. And they thought, and this is my feeling, or my understanding, is that they were only receiving grace because their father was there. Their father was alive. Because I remember in previous chapters, Joseph kept asking, was their father alive? Kept asking, was their dad, well, and to have him come. So his brothers thought, now that their father has passed, that they weren't going to receive the same grace, but they received even more. They received even more forgiveness. Joseph said, "Fear not, for am I in the place of God?" But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. Now therefore fear ye not, I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spake kindly unto them. Joseph had that forgiveness. He had that peace from God. Even though he had every right to be angry, he had every right to not want to, engage or deal with his brothers, but God gave him that peace to forgive them, as God forgives us for every time that we fall short, every time that we sin, every time that we step out of the character and the gifts that he has bestowed upon us. He forgives us every time. Even when you find it hard to forgive yourself, even when you find it hard to forgive other people, he always forgives us. So Joseph follows suit in that characteristic of forgiveness. And that really stuck out to me, because there are people in my life that things have occurred, things have unfolded, and I didn't realize there was still hints of resentment. There were still hints of, anger or sadness or whatever ill will between us because of what happened. And it's not like we're arguing. It's not like we're yelling. It's just a simple fact that you can feel it in the spirit. We're not talking the way that we used to. Those things have started to affect us. The enemy starts to creep into our minds and have us believe certain things about people. And then we follow suit on those actions because of those beliefs that we have heard from the enemy, which are just all lies. So God has graced me with forgiveness in certain areas. I was able to really go inside myself and see certain things that I didn't forgive people about decades ago, years ago, months ago, that now I've been able to show appreciation for being a part of it, being a part of their life, having them a part of my life. Because it was all showing me something. It was all teaching me something. It was something in that situation that I was not living up to these qualities and these characteristics of God, just as Joseph did in this. Because me, worldly me, I would not have talked to them. Y'all put me in a pit. Y'all thought I deserved to be in a pit. Y'all go in a pit as well. But that's not what God would do to us. That's not what God has ever done to us. So for us to treat God's children or other child that way, why do we think that we deserve to treat someone that way? Like the tables would never turn. That we think that we should give out the karma. We think that we should give out the punishments. We're not the ones to give out the punishment. God is the one to give out the punishments. We have to come to terms with what we needed to learn, what we needed to know. See the value in that person's essence, spirit, even being in you, because we're not fighting flesh. We're not fighting each other. It's a spiritual fight. My spirit in me, the things that I've built up as being a part of my making that has hurt me is fighting yours. So it's all ego. We all want to protect ourselves. And when someone comes up and threatens our protection of ourselves, things get fuzzy. Things get weird. So I don't fault those people, because I don't know what they've been through. I don't know what their makeup is. I don't know what they thought growing up, because all of that shaped how they responded in the situations that we were in. Same for me. I don't fault that person. I forgive that person. It was a spiritual thing we were fighting. And we let our egos, we let our pride, we let our fears, we let the enemy come in and divide and conquer us. To the point where we still have resentment time after. So God has graced me with forgiveness. God has reminded me how short life is. I've been watching a lot of near-death experiences, and they're very interesting. A lot of people who recall their accounts going through near-death experiences, they recall feeling that their life was like a blink of an eye. Like it was just like a blink of an eye. Even though while we're living it, it feels like everything is so detrimental. Everything is so monumental. Everything has such a big influence, and our feelings absorb all of that. But none of that really matters at the end of life, at the end of time. It doesn't matter. It's going to be more times that you can recall and wonder why you let division come in between. Why you let your feelings rule what was best. And it caused certain outcomes that just wasn't worth it at the end of the day, at the end of time. So I pray that God continues to bring that awareness to our lives, to our minds. What's worth it and what's not worth it. That this is more spiritual than it is physical. That you're not my enemy, it's the enemy that's our enemy. I pray for that. I pray that God continues to bring our connections and our families and you know, the spirits that are meant to continue to encourage and be brought into our lives. I hope those get stronger. I hope we all find the strength to forgive those that have wronged us. I hope we find the strength and continue to walk in accountability. How did you contribute to that downfall? It's never a one-man band. Your trauma, their trauma, equated to that downfall. How did you contribute? I pray God continues to show favor over our lives by giving us the knowledge, the awareness, and the wisdom to fight this spiritual battle. Because it's a battle. It's a war. And we have to let everyone know about the love, the grace, the beauty of God, of Jesus, so that everyone can feel this unconditional love. To know that you don't have to be perfect to be loved. You don't have to be perfect to be accepted, to be favored. Just speak to God, and God will speak back to you. You have to be aware and understand that sometimes your feelings is God speaking to you. What is it telling you? Those convictions, it's not meant to make you feel bad. It's to bring something to your attention. It's to reroute you towards that love. Not what's the word? Condemnation that we feel when we're not listening to God's word. So that was my takeaway from the last 2 chapters of Genesis. Our next podcast, we're going to read and get to know God in Exodus. We're going to start with chapter 1 and chapter 2. And I'll see you all in the next podcast. Definitely make sure that you share this with anyone that you feel called to. And definitely join us back